So good evening, everybody, and welcome virtually to the British Institute of Florence. I'm Simon Gamble, the director of the British Institute, and I'm welcoming you to the fifth session of our Future of Florence series under our new banner, Firenze NOW, which is our platform for looking at contemporary issues in the beautiful city of Florence. This evening's panel is about tourism of the future. And I'm just going to introduce you to our panel and then hand over, first of all, to Marzio Fatucchi, who will be our moderator. Marzio is a senior journalist and editor at the Corriere Fiorentino, which is the Florence section of the Corriere della Sera. And Corriere Fiorentino have been our partners for the Future Florence series throughout. So thank you to Marzio for agreeing to be our moderator tonight. And then on the panel, I'll try and do it in alphabetical order. We have zooming in all the way from Vancouver, I think you're in, Dianne, certainly on the west coast of Canada, is Dianne Archibald, who is a very experienced heritage manager and researcher. She works for ICOMOS, an important committee of the UNESCO World Heritage Organization. Next up, we have, in alphabetical order, Lara Fantoni, formerly manager of the Florence Tourism Board and has had a number of roles in the Metropolitan Florentine public administration related to tourism. Third in line, we have Leonardo Ferragamo, who is the director of Ferragamo SPA and chairman of the Lungano Hotels Group. And last but not least, Pier Carlo Testa, who is a director of Ars Viva, a tour operator, and is also chair of the Tuscan branch of the Italian National Organization for Tour Operators. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your panel. And so I pass the word now to Marzio to make the introductions and get us started.
Thank you, Simon. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I have to apologize for my bad English, but as a local reporter, I don't practice very much English, and I promise that after the pandemic, I will take some lessons at the British Institute of Florence. Just before starting and introducing all our panelists, that we talk about tourism and the future of tourism in Florence, I want to share with you this image. I think you can see it. Just confirm that you can see this map. It was 2015. In Florence, as Corriere Fiorentino, we already wrote a lot about over-tourism and the effects of the increasing of the tourism, both good and bad. But in that precise moment, we were able to describe the boom, the shocking boom of Airbnb in Florence. At that time, there were at least 5,600 houses rented through Airbnb. During the years, these figures went up to 16,000. And this is one of the problems we will discuss about. Obviously, tourism is not only a problem for the city, it's a huge economical sector. It was so important during this period that we realized when the economical crisis caused by the pandemic came. During the lockdown, sorry, it's not COVID. During the lockdown, the historical center of Florence lost the 40% of jobs in tourism, bar, restaurants, hotels, and services connected to tourism. And this is one of the aspects. From 2008 to 2019, tourism was one of the sectors that had a better impact on jobs and GDP in our economy, not only of Florence, but of the metropolitan area. So let's start. We are going again in alphabetical order. There will be a first round in which each one of our panelists will focus what they think about the future of tourism after, as soon as possible, I would underline, the pandemic. So, Dianne, it's up to you. You have to switch on the microphone.
Okay, thank you, Marzio. I would like to begin with to start with the issues that face Florence pre-pandemic, and now what this pandemic has done, to quote the architect Mario Boato, is that it has put everybody on pause and allowed us to reflect and how we may change things to move forward. So to lay out some of the issues that were facing Florence pre-pandemic and later look at possible solutions. So the challenges and issues for Florence at this time, of course, were the mass tourism, the commodification of tourism as we see it in Florence by UNESCO, the de-urbanization of the historic city, which results in loss of communities. And one of the most destructive forces that UNESCO is looking at in mass tourism with its historic centers around the world is the destructive force of Airbnb. Now, the challenges of mass tourism cause congestion, pollution, noise pollution, tourism overtaking urban activities of the community, and overuse of heritage assets. Thank you. Marzio, I hand over to you.
It's up to Lara.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon Gamble, for inviting me, and my distinguished fellow panelists for sharing this opportunity with me. First of all, as active in the sector for years, in the public sector for tourism, it hurts me all the time when I hear somebody saying, lately, we needed a pandemic to understand how important tourism is for the city and its territory. You've just said that, Marzio, and I've heard it many times over the past months. The economic impact of tourism in Florence is so great, was so great, that we cannot go on indulging in what could be defined our original sin of underestimating that same impact, that same impact, considering tourism as a side effect of heritage. And I encompass landscape in heritage. Then I would like to say that as a consequence of the above mentioned original sin, tourism is indeed an industry in Florence, as it is in Italy, but it has seldom been considered as such, and it still is not. Then I would like to quote the speech of Mayor Giorgio La Pira. He held this speech on 6th November 1954 when he opened the Isolotto Borough. And he was addressing the architects, the designers of the Isolotto Borough. What have you created, my friends architects? Which mother idea, at the same time brand new and belonging to the past, has inspired your architectural and urban creation? A city is like a big home for a big family. This is the fundamental idea, which had already been formulated by Leon Battista Alberti, that guided you in meditating, designing, and building this new city. The city is an organic unity that offers our present and future members as a home would for the present and future members of a family all the essential elements for the serene development of their life. Urban planning itself is intended for a profoundly human purpose, to establish, strengthen, increase among the members of a city a communion of life. Now, I am afraid the Florence of late has at times ceased to be a home for the citizens. And when I say citizens, I include in the concept also tourists as temporary citizens. I don't like to call them city users, as I don't like to call city users people who commute. So I think that we need a new vision for Florence, starting from urban planning. We need to rethink the city, learning from what has happened over the past decade, mass tourism, sharing economy. We cannot do without that, but we have to use it, not be used by that. We are still on time, I think. I'm sure of that. This is the right time. We needed a pandemic to become conscious of this, but we are still on time. When global tourism starts again, and it will start again soon, it will be too late.
Thank you, Lara. Leonardo Ferragamo, please.
Yes, I want to start by thanking Simon and the British Institute for putting this panel together and posing the theme of tourism in the future, which I think is so crucial, not only for Florence, but for Italy on a whole. I think this pandemic, as it was said already, with the disasters that it has created around us, has created something that we must capture, which is the awareness of tourism and what it means to our society before talking about the economy. And so many people in some of the cultural cities in Italy, and Florence by far, were also enemies of tourism, and they were looking at it with suspicion. They were sort of taking a counter attitude towards it. Now I think everybody is understanding what this means to the city, and not only to the people that are directly or indirectly involved in managing tourism, but to everybody living in the same area. And so this is an acknowledgement, which I believe it's very important, because it gives us an opportunity to rethink how we do tourism, how we're going to manage tourism in the future. And I think Italy comes from a very privileged position, having 60 to 70% of the artistic assets in the world. Florence has maybe half of them. And together with a beautiful country, sometimes nice people, and a lot of things to do, you always have had a very natural flow of tourism visiting our country and cities. But with the bads and the goods, sometimes we have massive tourism. Not that I want to discriminate from the rich tourism and the poor tourism, but I'm talking about educated tourists versus non-educated. Tourism that is respectful of the places he walks on and what he sees, and people that don't, that are not. And this has created some very important disruptions. So I think, and I will stop here so that we leave the discussion when we're talking about the future, this has basically spoiled us in managing tourism in a passive way, therefore getting, yes, also a lot of good, but a lot of negative impact in our economy. So this, and this is my point, this is the time, and we don't have too much time, hopefully, because we're going to come out of this very soon. We need to repropose ourselves in a new direction, a new strategy for the future.
Thank you, Leonardo. Pier Carlo. It's very important to underline also the voice of operators. You have to switch on your audio. Okay.
Thank you, first of all, to Simon Gamel for this opportunity to be in this panel. I am the president of FIAVET, which is the Association of Travel Agents and Tour Operators. And of course, in this time, we are completely at zero bookings, zero activity. We are all shut. And as you all said just before, we are trying to take the opportunity to rethink and to try to take the time we have in abundance now to plan a different scenario for the future. I would like to start saying that since century, Florence has been an amazing attraction for visitors from around Europe and around all world. Even through the wars, Florence has been visited by people attracted by not only the beauty, not only the heritage of art history, but also for the town. The town has a big attractivity in terms of the people also that works in this town, the craftsmen, the bottega, all the activity and the community life. And this is something that grow to the time, to the centuries, together with the art, which is an amazing heritage that the city got from the past, from the glorious past. Through the years, often the market went much faster than the rules. And lately what happened has been that, particularly with the development of the tourism industry online, we watched an incredible fast and quick development of groups and visitors in not only on Florence, of course, but in every art cities. This made the politics and the people that make the rules extremely delayed, extremely not in time to make order and to make rules, to be in conditions to control what was going on. And this in the latest years has been an incredible fast process. As you, Marzio, were showing the map of Airbnb places in town a few years ago, year after years, there has been an impressive growth. And we are stunned by the fast, quick way the city is turning into a complete passive city. Now we are closed down, and if you go around in Florence suburbs, is not so dead, the city. Is amazing to see that there are lots of people and activities in the peripheral areas and in the suburbs. If you walk in the center, you will see a desert. This is because recently, as someone else said before me, has been a strong de-unurbation of the center. And for example, where I live, I do live in a center near Ponte Vecchio, and 10 years ago we were lots of residents and old families. Now we have almost all Airbnb, and the residents are left only 2 or 3 of us. This is just my personal situation, but this is emblematic of a general situation everywhere. And this is the time to rethink the tourism we want, or to say better, the tourism that Florence deserves. Because, of course, Florence will continue to be an attraction for the visitor from all over the world. But in this moment, we have the opportunity to change and to push the politicians, the people that write the rules, to make courageously new rules, because this is what is necessary. Is a vast thing about, and I will say more later. Thank you.
Thank you. You focus on several of the points we will discuss. There is already some questions on the chat on Zoom. I will start again from Lara, because one of these questions, maybe you have the answer. The question is about the GDP produced by tourism. I remember it was about 19%, something more, something less, but I always remember that Florence is still a manufacturing city. I mean, manufacture produce more GDP than tourism still right now, especially because we have a multinational called General Electric, now Ukraine-based General Electric company. Is one of the main factory of the world of oil and gas. But Lara, I would also talk with you about the impact, the economic impact that you were quoting before, for the jobs created in the last 12 years, tourism. But the point is, tourism increased without any specific planning of the sector, as Pier Carlo just remembered us. And this is what happened. For years, over-tourism is expected. The golden horde, as Predini Foundation called it, changed the social, economic life of the city, from renting to shop. Is it possible to plan? Because now we are facing this possibility. We can plan for some months to plan something different now. Who should do it? Do we have laws, regulations that allow us for planning something different in this sector?
Thank you, Marzio. First, your question for the GDP. I was checking while you were asking. Now, the average in Italy is actually 13 as early as 2019. I was thumbing through the economic impact of tourism research of the Florence Chamber of Commerce. For Florence, we go over 20%.
Okay. In the last year.
In the last tourist year, so 20.
Pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. Then going to your second question, it is a time of choices. I mean, tourist tax. Let's call it tourist tax. Imposta di soggiorno actually is not exactly a tourist tax. I'll start from the municipality, then I'll go up. One of the things to do probably is to make hard choices. What to renounce? For example, buses. Can we do it without? I know that I'm being provocative, especially talking to Pier Carlo, of course. I'm not saying that it's the thing to do, but when we learned a few months ago that over 70% of the yearly balance of the municipality of Florence was based on receipts from tourist tax and bus passes, tourist bus passes.
You understand why? I mean,
yeah,
there was no. So
you have to make. We will probably have to make choices. Can we do without people sleeping in Florence, maybe more than one night? No. Can we do without people coming for just one day or a few hours and polluting and leaving garbage, probably buying next to nothing, some of them with a packed lunch, cruises? I mean, I'm not an angel. I know that we need all of this, or we needed all of this, but we have to make choices. Maybe favoring groups, bus groups that sleep. This would be one thing. Favoring means using different prices for the access to the city. It is already like that, but if we want to prevent day tours, do we want to prevent them? There's a word behind that, working guides. I know that I'm touching very sensitive points, but planning and shaping the future means also making choices. But laws in tourism are written by the regional level, especially laws having to do with professions, with accommodation structures, with licensing. So we need to work in close connection. I think, I don't want to say more than this, but I have always in mind an example of how to prevent the long, terrible queues in front of the cathedral. A couple of years ago, there were the so-called giornalate, and first page of newspapers. It can't be solved just pointing at somebody. It's cooperating, all levels of government and private sector, choosing what is better or less bad sometimes, but finding a different way to cope with what one can. For example, day tours for guides. I know that I'm saying sensitive things, but I think we cannot put that off anymore.
Lara, just to introduce some other aspect that we, I don't know what's the expression avvocato del diavolo in English. Okay?
I don't know if
Simon
maybe can.
Simon or Dianne, if you know.
It's devil's advocate is what you're looking for. Devil's advocate.
Yeah. But I also remember that apart from jobs and GDP, they use Airbnb that are the devil's advocate. Thanks, Rosa. In some cases, the use of Airbnb of old houses in the historical center by families helped the life and the wealth of thousands of families. The point is that now the majority of the houses rented through Airbnb are managed, not owned, but managed by companies that sometimes are almost illegal. Are company, but they're not officially companies, so they pay taxes as a company and so on and so on. But Lara quoted Giorgio Lapira, Pier Carlo talk about the changes of the historical center. Dianne, there is a very huge problem in one of the aspects that is more important, because heritage is not only buildings, art craft, or monuments, or statues, and so on, paintings, and so on. Because heritage is a wall. ICOMOS has a long story of study and care for the city of Florence, obviously not for its heritage. It is not limited by the walls, no longer existing, by the way, of the historical center. And you consider, first of all, Florence as a whole, the whole city, the whole landscape, the whole cultural heritage made by artisans, and also way of life. That what Pier Carlo was talking about, and also you. Many tourists, Florence was hit by the over-tourism. So no, it was at risk. Now it's empty. But what suggestion can you give to avoid this risk in the future, especially for the soul of the city?
Okay, thank you, Marzio. Actually, I think one of the things that we need to begin with is for Florence, and I just want to step back and underline also what Lara and Leonardo were saying, in that in this moment to stop and to pause and to rethink. We're looking at a quality of tourism for Florence. And I think what's important here is to have a type of tourism that is reciprocal. One of the things that UNESCO was looking at worldwide is the commodification of tourism of UNESCO World Heritage sites. So Florence is not alone in dealing with all of these challenges and issues. And Lara touched on the necessity of looking at structuring a holistic approach to tourism, and looking at structuring tourism, and looking at incorporating into urban planning heritage and tourism as part of urban planning policies. And I think we need to step back from that. I think that is a very important direction to go, but I also think that we need to step back and look at major shifts that you just touched upon, Marzio, in the meaning of heritage. What is heritage? And there has been a major shift by UNESCO and its advisory bodies, which are ICOMOS, which I'm appointed to, ICROM, IUCN. And there's been a major shift in the emphasis of heritage being the safeguarding and conservation of famous buildings and monuments, to rather than viewing, and this has been one of the challenges for Florence, rather than viewing the city as communities of people with values and with histories. And so there are many developments over the last 15 years within UNESCO World Heritage, including the embracing of not only material heritage, but also intangible heritage, which speaks directly to Florence, which speaks to the artisans, which speaks to Italy has raised the level of craftsmanship and artisans to an art form, to design. and looking at the advances with UNESCO and ICOMOS in heritage urban landscape. So Lara was also talking about landscapes, and we look at the whole Florence, not just as a cluster of buildings. If you go back to the original designation of Florence as a World Heritage Site, it is the whole urban fabric. And it's not just the Palazzo Vecchio and the cathedral. It is all of the historic center of Florence that crosses the Arno River and is within the walls, the last set of a circle of walls. And so it is not only the buildings, but it is the streets and the squares and the piazzas that are the threads that weave together the urban fabric. And it's the neighborhoods and it's the communities. And another major advancement in UNESCO that we have is the inclusion or the shift from heritage as being buildings to the cultural meaning. So the cultural meaning of that's embedded in the buildings and the piazzas and the squares, the cultural meaning, the layers in the communities. This is another advancement. And I just want to also touch on the latest advancements in looking at heritage and tourism. They are together, they're integrated. And so heritage tourism is a way of educating, as Leonardo said, the traveler to search out what is authentic in the understanding of the city, of the community, of its values and its histories. And one of the latest movements in UNESCO is, of course, sustainability. So we're looking at the heritage urban landscape and making it more sustainable. And from the Pacific coast of Canada, I follow every day what's happening in Florence. And I see already advances are being made in changing the Lungo Arno into areas of it as being pedestrian and for bicycles. And this improves the quality of the city, not only for the residents, but also for the visitors. And also, major shift in UNESCO right now, shifting from heritage as buildings to heritage as being people and community centered. So I hope that helps to answer or respond to your question. Thank you.
It's a very big and difficult goal, because if I sum up everything you said just before, it's the way to introduce Leonardo Ferragamo, because you are talking not about tourists, but about something like a new citizen, temporary citizen, no? People that live like citizen, a city. We call this in these years, Leonardo, quality tourists, or something like that. It's not the real translation in English, but quality tourism was one of the key words of one of the most innovative and important cultural projects of the last 10 years in Florence at the Palazzo Strozzi Foundation. It was created just before the wave of tourism hit our city. But can this approach be used in other contexts, and again, especially because we don't know what kind of tourism will be in the next year in Florence and all around the world?
Well, as I said, I think this is really the opportunity to look at the future with different visions and start to have a proactive role in promoting the right tourism. There's no question that tourism is a big lever in the economy of a territory. And I think the opportunity is by looking at a wider picture. Why only consider Florence as an issue to be solved? Why don't we look at the great territory of Tuscany? Tuscany is one of the best regions in the world. There's not really many other territories like Tuscany. If you think about it, it's the only region in Italy that normally translates into English, by the way. But because it's always been an international reference. And the other issue is about the season. why do we have to be invaded by massive loads of tourism in the hot months when the same opportunities are there in all the other 8 months of the year? Is it only because the cold weather that is preventing people to come, or is it because we're doing not enough to be propositive to the world of what Florence and Tuscany and the rest of Italy can offer in this other period? But let's work on it. Let's create temptation for people to come and visit us in other periods of the year. But unless we provoke them, it's not going to happen naturally. It's going to happen only at a certain level. And then it's about fidelization, I think. If you have a wider territory, if you have a wider number of opportunities for a visitor to see, why don't we create a dialogue with him, telling over time what's going on, what the opportunities are. If not in Florence, they are going to happen in Lucca, Siena, or Forte dei Marmi, or wherever. But let's create a proactive way of being propositive to the tourism. We live of tourism, but we have to deserve it by running it in the right way.
Perfect, Leonardo. I left Pier Carlo Testa the last of this first round because I had the most difficult question for him. Because the first difficult question is, according to your studies, from the rumors you have, when the former level of tourism, of people traveling, will come back. Okay, when we will have the same figures of people going around the world as tourists. Okay, this is the first difficult question. The second is even more difficult, because here we talk about regulation, we talk about laws, we talk about choices, big, hard, difficult choices, because if you get rid of tassa di soggiorno, the travel tax, you don't have the money to pay the public transport in Florence. Okay, the half of the public transport. I mean, it's not a joke. I'm not kidding. That's the way it is. Okay, we pay half of the public transport by bus thanks to the tassa di soggiorno. But one of the most important things that happened during the last year was that Uffizi won a legal action against a web platform that was selling the Uffizi tickets in a second buy, a second seller, putting a lot of extra charges on them. And this legal action lasted 4 years. 4 years, 3 or 4 years, or something like that. Okay, just to have the right to be the only one to sell the ticket. I mean, you're facing problems that are not local. You're facing problems that are global. For Airbnb, we need a European regulation. It can be a city to face and to fight, maybe, or maybe to regulate a phenomenon, a global phenomenon as Airbnb. Pier Carlo.
Okay, sorry for that. Yes, the first point is pretty simple, actually. At the moment is basically forbidden to fly. So the international market of flying is completely stopped at the moment. Only few business flights are allowed with higher prices. And we can't see at the moment the exit from the tunnel. I mean, the day when the flights will restart and will be a little bit normal, okay? Many air companies are collapsing around the world. Many big companies that we admire until yesterday because of their economy are helped by their government, otherwise they were on bankrupt. This is a terrible fact that stop everyone to even think about to have a trip and come to Italy or whatever, okay, to Florence. So until the flight industry will not restart, here we are. We are absolutely stuck in this situation. This proves and indicates the situation we are watching around, how the extra EU tourism is fundamental for Florence, is absolutely massive, the percent of extra European visitors. So we have to wait the day when the flights will go again, will start again. And this will not happen before people will feel again confident to start the trip and to go away from home in a foreign country and risking sometimes. So we have to wait, but for now, we don't think 2021 will be the year that will be to be considered like was 2019 or the years before. The situation will start to make, probably, it's very difficult to predict the future, but probably in 2022 or even later, okay? This is what International Observer said even recently. About the second point, about the rules, it's clear, yes, that are necessary big rules because, and the politicians has to take courageous initiative to make rules. Otherwise, will be a disaster because we expect a so-called V effect. You know the shape of the letter V. We are basically near the bottom from the first half of the shape of the letter V. But when the flight will restart and the tourism movement will restart, we will follow the second half of the letter V. So as a graphic, will be an incredible increase, quick, of the numbers, and we all that we are here talking will be very busy with customers again. So quickly will be a situation like was before the pandemic. So we have to act now. And we have few months concretely to act. And I think and try to go inside the matter that does not exist the solution, but we have to find many little solutions. Of course, one point very crucial is the point of the accommodation for people coming to Florence. This is a crucial point. Politicians can make rules to incentive or disincentive. For example, we have to incentive people to go back to live in the center. We have to incentive people to continue craft jobs, to continue to keep the bottega open. We have to incentive every cultural event that attract scholars, tourists, tourists in the sense of people really interested in art. We have to attract artists because historically Florence has been a town where artists were coming here to learn in some bottega, and something similar should be incentivized by new rules. And we have to incentivize long-term visitors because Florence is a place where it is lovely to stay, not just for 3 days or a week, but it's lovely to stay for a longer term, definitely. As the same way we have to disincentive. And as I said before, the point of the accommodation is crucial because we cannot handle, the city cannot handle the thousands and thousands of people that come here. You mentioned Airbnb. Of course, Airbnb is definitely a part of the problem. but is not the only one. But if we start to make not so easy for Airbnb management, we should stop the little companies that manage many apartments, like a little industry tax-free. We have to protect the people that has a one room or one small apartment and make the family budget completed and better life quality. But we have to disincentive and discourage the massive sale of the city to these budget travelers, because this is what happens. Tassa di soggiorno should continue to come, okay? And Tassa di soggiorno, I remember when has been created by one of the many government we had, was called Tassa di scopo. Tassa di scopo, which means a tax that the public authorities don't collect just to make the state budget for the year, but was a tax that had to be invested in for precise objective, for precise realization, concretization. The Tassa di Scopo has been created to invest in tourism industry. This doesn't happen, unfortunately. The Tassa di Soggiorno, we know when the first time the Comune di Firenze got the money from the Tassa di Soggiorno and moved in another chapter of the city council budget and moved to pay the debts of the local public transport company. Okay, I understand people that are desperate to make the balance of the public transport company, but this doesn't help the city. This doesn't help the city at all. That money was important to create infrastructure, because if a tourist wants to go to see, I make a silly example, if a group of tourists we manage as a tour operator, we want to bring people to see the Museo Stibert, which is in a suburb of the city, I don't know how to go there. It's impossible to go there. Unless you pay an expensive cab, it's impossible to get there. So this does not work. To conclude, I talk already too much. Another very important area where the public authorities should work is about the abusive operators. Because we have a lot of rules, we have lots of laws, good laws in many ways, sometimes a bit out of date, okay? We should update the taxes, the rules, because technology runs so fast that our rules written maybe at the beginning of the millennium are 20 years old and sounds like rules from 19th century, are completely out of date. And anyway, even after I said that, are so many rules that should be applied and so many abusive, you cannot imagine how many they are. Imagine that we calculate that 50% of the groups that are walking around in Florence are abusive. Groups, I'm talking about groups. It's shocking what happens. It's shocking the inertia of the public authorities in front of phenomena that bring massive amount of people not interested, like the free tours, just to mention something else. The free tours where nobody made a rule, nobody wrote anything. So in front of no rules, no laws, there is an expansion completely out of control. I like to use the word deregulation de facto.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what happened. In some way, we wrote about this kind of problems very many times during these years. I don't know, Simon, if there is some question from the public. That is very huge. We got only on Zoom 58 people watching us.
Okay, thank you, Marzio. Yeah, I think it is time to open it up to the audience. We have two audiences. We got the 50 to 60 odd people on the Zoom. And if you on the Zoom would like to ask a question, can you just put your hand up in the comments, and I'll invite in the chat, and I'll invite you to unmute and ask your question. Conversely, if you're on the Facebook Live, if you want to ask a question, please put it in the comments, and it will be passed to me on a text, and I will read it out on your behalf. So we already have one person on Facebook Live, a lady from Thailand, who has just joined us from the other side of the world, which shows that we have a genuinely global audience tonight. And she just said that she can't wait for the opportunity to get on a plane and come back to Florence. So I think we will have our V-shape once it's safe.
And Pier Carlo was right when he said we were at the bottom of the V. Oh, okay.
That's right. Now, on the Zoom, Molly Kellogg is first, who would like to ask a question. Molly, please unmute yourself and show us your face with the video and ask a question.
Yes, thank you, Simon. I live in a city that is struggling with many of the same issues. In addition to living in Italy, we live in Santa Barbara, California. We have masses of tourists. We have had a huge Airbnb issue. And let me just offer some areas that we have already addressed and some that we are thinking about. With respect to Airbnb, some of these things have been done, some of them are now being considered. First of all, there is a minimum amount of time that someone has to stay in an Airbnb. In our case, it's 1 month, which is pretty extreme, okay? The second that we're considering now is that the only people who can utilize Airbnb as owners are people for whom their home in Santa Barbara is their principal residence. This takes away the real estate companies. We have the same issue, buying property in Santa Barbara, utilizing it only for Airbnb, thereby depressing further the amount of rentals that were available for people who reside in Santa Barbara. So there are those two aspects that we have utilized with respect to Airbnb. So with respect to Florence, a minimum amount of time to me makes a huge amount of sense. It also attracts a certain kind of tourist that's willing to engage with Florence really as a visitor. The other aspect that we are concerned with here in Santa Barbara, and we are late to the game because Americans don't ever want to give up their car, but we have made extensive pedestrian areas that didn't exist before. Florence already has that. But the suggestions of the Riverside now that were made make a huge amount of sense. So I just share that as someone who loves Florence and also loves my city of Santa Barbara.
Thank you very much, Molly. Now we'll ask Julia Bolton to unmute and put on the video and ask us, make a comment.
Can't do the start video, but I've always come to Florence in the summers to work.
Sorry, I muted you by mistake. Unmute again, please, Julia. My bad.
And because I used to come to work with the manuscripts and was used to how the British Library shows its manuscripts, but Florence doesn't. And they are such treasures, the Dantes and so forth. If there could be a way for the libraries together to do in some place an exhibition of their great manuscripts, to share them with the Florentine school children, the tourists, it's another area. Also, I'm custodian of the English cemetery, and I've often suggested that there could be a percorso like Père Lachaise, with the Jewish cemetery, the English cemetery, the Misericordia, and also Porte Sante, which the tourist bus goes to. And also the tourist bus is so ugly. Couldn't it have Botticelli drawings on it instead? I really feel that Florence needs to emphasize the extraordinary beauty of its art, which is now largely lost. You used to have wonderful calendars of the Fra Angelicas. Now those are only in closed shops. They're no longer on the street corners. And I think we need to keep reminding the world of these exquisite treasures that have always been the meaning of Florence, the reason why people came century after century.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank
I've just got somebody who's come in on the Facebooks. Eleonora Agostini says, I have a question. One of the biggest problems in tourism is the mass tourism caused by cruise ships. This is a touch and go tourism, which gives no quality, fills up cities to the brink, and is often not very nice to the eye. Could something change in this industry? And I think already Lara was talking about that. In a moment, I'm just going to take one more question, and then let's have some more comments from the panel. Last question before we go back to the panel from Beatrice Bagari-Stoffi. Are you there, Beatrice?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. There are so many items that should be treated for hours, I suppose. But my question goes to Lara, and I would like to, let's say, have her opinion in respect to the idea of calling a table involving all the stakeholders and the institutions that are operating in tourism, discussing these challenges that we have, that apparently, from what I am understanding, we don't have much time to rethink, to reconsider how to reshape the system and the organization and the laws and the regulations in tourism. What do you think?
Thank you, Beatrice. I will be blunt. There are loads of tables, of tavoli di concertazione, cabine di regia. I must say the truth. We need to tourism to empower itself on the public sector. I mean, tourism has not taken extremely seriously, has not been taken seriously by the public sector in Italy. I'm not saying only Florence. I'm talking about the state I live in. I'm a citizen of.
Everybody is shaking his head.
Because what
And also Leonardo.
I will make an example. You all of you remember the long queues in front of the Accademia. Accademia, no Uffizi. There was a time not far away in time when the Accademia and the Museo di San Marco, just across the square, were managed. They probably still is managed by the same institution, which is the state. And the Museo di San Marco was always empty and closed at lunchtime. I mean, in Naples, I've seen, not to talk about Disney World or Disneyland, but in Naples, I've seen queue management for pizza at the Tribunali Street. Why cannot we manage those queues? Apart from not having queues there, but why can't we? People who have to wait for 2 hours might probably love to dive to make the experience, because San Marco is an experience. It's a dive into the early Renaissance, into Savonarola's words.
Yes.
And whenever I've talked about this at tables, I mean, I'm not a decision maker. I'm not, and I wasn't even when I was head of the tourism board for a brief time. Everybody was saying, no, it's impossible because we cannot talk to the state level. That's the problem. We need empowerment. As we women know that we still need empowerment. Tourism needs empowerment, serious empowerment in this state, in this nation, in this city, in this region.
Mm-hmm. Lara, Leonardo wanted to say that something. Unfortunately, you're not a decision maker, unfortunately. Please, Leonardo.
Yes, I want to thank Lara because she mentioned one of the most important things. The public sector has never taken tourism seriously. And that is what I was trying to say in different words when we say we've done even too much in managing tourism by managing it passively without having a leadership, a public leadership into this. If you think we don't even have a minister of tourism, and once we have it, when there's somebody put in this role is cultura e turismo, like if tourism was only about culture. And how about all the business fairs, the schools, and all the other connected activities to tourism? So the fact that we don't have a minister of tourism is showing the short-sighted position of our country in managing it properly. However, I think we should start giving a very good example by managing ourselves as the public sector. Let's get some of them agencies that are involved in tourism. I'm thinking of Toscana Promozione, I'm thinking of Florence Tourism Bureau, but there are other ones. Let's take one under the umbrella of the public sector, whether it's the region or whether it's the Florence municipality, and let's give it the proper board, the proper vision, and let them work toward bringing out their mission of managing tourism, on one side promoting it, as I have expressed earlier, but also managing the rules with which tourism has to work on and how to affect the life in the cities. But let's start somewhere. And as this very interesting panel, this webinar, has an aim to be propositive to the municipality, to the comune, let's bring this as a concrete proposal of starting here in Florence, showing the rest of the country how things need to be managed. And we're ready for it.
Thank you, Leonardo. One of the comments is by Sarah Murdoch that focused the point that we have to change the expectation of the tourist. And someone else is handing up. Jen. But I can't hear you, Simon, because
Hi. So it's actually, Sarah's just said what I was going to say, is that there's some statistic, and I think it's something like 80% of tourists visit the some of the place, 80% of the tourists, and then 20%. So you go to the Uffizi, there's hundreds of people, you go down the road to the Bargello, and you walk in and it's exquisite. And I'm saying, if the tour guides are licensed to this, don't they have to have a license in the city of Florence? They have the responsibility of sharing, whether it's the Accademia in San Marco and Medici Riccardi and San Lorenzo. It's moving people around so that more of Florence is exposed. And the whole tour, so I went to Florence and I saw the David, fine. How about I went to Florence and whatever, something else. It doesn't have to be focused on 2 or 3 things. And this is the responsibility, I think, of of tour guides and planning and working together. I'm finished.
Thank you, Jen. Just to, I don't know if someone else, Sarah Murdoch, Simon.
Yeah, Sarah, come on, talk to us, Sarah Murdoch.
Okay,
Hi there.
perfect.
I'm a travel writer, and I was a guidebook writer for about 20 years, focusing on Italy. And I've spent a lot of time in Florence, and now I'm starting to run my own tours. And I think that really a lot of this shouldn't come from the regulation side. I mean, I've seen so many regulations come and go throughout Florence in the years that it's sort of confusing for me, at least, to try and figure out what's new, what's happening, what's changing. But the real thing that's going to be an economic decider in this is not the regulations. I think Airbnb is a separate question, and that definitely needs to be sorted out. But from my side of the business, I would say the important thing is that travel writers, travel journalists, the media need to be promoting the idea of a different kind of tourism. We need to be letting people know that there is a different way to go about things. And this is a mindset. The mindset is you can come to Florence and see everything in a day. And that's why people are coming and seeing the Uffizi and the Accademia, and that's it. But if we start, not just with Florence, but with Italy as a whole, to tell people, look, you know, there's so much to see here. The reason people don't go into the San Marco Museum is they don't know about it. And they only hear about the Accademia, they only hear about the Uffizi. If we can get travel writers, influencers, journalists, anybody to start promoting a different kind of tourism, that's, I think, the key to changing the way tourists behave, the kind of travel the tourists are purchasing. So, for example, next year, I'm going to be promoting mostly staycations, trips that are a week or longer, setting in one location. And I think this is a great opportunity to promote that kind of travel, because the benefit is that in COVID, we are all very concerned about hygienic standards. Well, if you're only dealing with one hotel and one city, that lowers risk for everybody. It lowers it for the tour operator, it lowers it for the traveler. So this could be a key to kind of using this moment to promote a new approach to travel. And that needs to start at the consumer level. I think that's what's going to change the city more than anything, is changing the ideas that consumers have going into buying a tourist opportunity there.
Good idea, especially the last one. I just want to focus one aspect and answer to, I don't remember the name, about that, I think Molly. One of the problems of Italy is that our municipality haven't the same power of the United States municipality, have lower power and lower incomes. That's one of the main problems. That's why we are so strictly connected to Tassa di Soggiorno, tourist taxes. Simon.
Yes, I'm open to more questions coming in from Zoom or from Facebook Live. But I just, what I'm hearing, whilst we're waiting for other people, I'm going to say something. What I'm hearing is it would be huge benefits for everybody concerned, whether it's the residents, whether it's the visitors, whether it's the tour operators, whether it's the people running the museums, whether it's the shops and the restaurants. If we could move from short stay mass tourism to longer stay quality tourism. And how we get that move is the challenge I would submit. And what I'm hearing is it can only happen if all the actors in the whole ecosystem work together. So Sarah was talking interesting about the important role that travel writers and other influencers have, and the tour operators, and designing different kinds of packages. And then we've got the importance of the public sector getting its act together, the absence of a minister, or I don't know whether Florence has an assessore for tourism, but getting a proper governmental framework to take the industry of tourism seriously. And then intelligent strategic rules and regulations to incentivize the longer stay quality tourism and massively disincentivize the short stay, low value tourism. And how we get there is the huge challenge. Now, other people want to come in. Rose, do you want to say something? You've been commenting a lot. Why don't you come and talk to us? Is she there? No, she's shy. She's not shy. Rose, unmute yourself. You're still muted. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Yes, it's been a very interesting discussion. Thank you very much for organising this. Our beagle is trying to jump up and get on the video, so I'd better let him say hello. Here's our beagle wanting to jump up and say hello. And he won't keep quiet until he's done that. Every time I'm in a Zoom, he wants to jump up and say hello. I think it's really, really important for Florence to start to have rules, like Pierre was saying, where local legal businesses are respected and locals are incentivized. I think the figures for tourism not contributing to the local economy as much as they are is because of the massive amount of illegal tour operators that are in Florence, because they're not paying taxes locally. So of course, they're not contributing to the local economy, and because of that, that income is not a part of the local economy. So I think that Florence should really do something seriously about making sure that people are paying taxes that should be paying taxes and that are respecting and following local rules. To have a sustainable tourism in Florence, we need to have you know, good rules and people following the rules and people policing the rules and making sure that everybody's doing that. I think there's been some comments about how the cruise ship crowds have badly impacted on Florence. You know, I've lived here for over 20 years and the cruise ships have always been coming, and yes, they're not the kinds of tourism, the kind of tourism that we want to see. We don't want to see large groups walking around here in Florence, marauding around and just having a panino and then leaving again and not contributing to the local culture and the local economy. But the real overcrowding of Florence happened within the last few years with the massive amount of Airbnb apartments. I think Dianne Archibald was saying with the UNESCO heritage figures, she was saying that there were over 18,000 Airbnbs in Florence, and that the Guardia di Finanza, the finance police, thought that it was probably a lot more with all the apartments on the black market. And it's been in the last few years that Florence has really, really suffered a kind of over tourism and a much cheaper kind of tourism, because I think that those people staying in those apartments, they're not going to local restaurants, they're just going to the supermarket. They're not contributing to the local economy. So I think that the first most important thing to be done is for town planning to be done to control the massive amount of Airbnb apartments in Florence, because even in the condominium that I'm living in near the Ponte Vecchio, when we moved in here over 15 years ago, it was all local long-term tenants and owners here. Now about 60% of it is Airbnb apartments. So so it's turned Florence into a kind of a Disneyland, and Airbnb says, you know, come and live like a local. But what everyone's done, every man and his dog has invested in short rental beds here in Florence, very low quality ones. Like in my condominium, there's a flat on the ground floor that constantly has 10 and 12 people staying in it, and it's only a 2-bedroom apartment. So there's absolutely no control, and it's extremely unfair on the registered hotels in Florence that have a massive amount of rules, a massive amount of regulations that they have to follow, employment rules and everything. So it's really, really unfair competition for the hotels in Florence that have to provide a good, decent quality of accommodation, safe accommodation for people coming to stay in Florence. So I've really seen the overcrowding of Florence due to the massive rise in Airbnb in Florence. The cruise ship people have been coming for years and years and years, and yes, that's a problem. But I think the degradation of Florence as a UNESCO heritage city has happened with the massive rise in Airbnb here. Sorry for the long chat.
Okay, Marzio, if I may, before we go back to the panel, I've just got 3 comments coming in from Facebook, which I'll read out. And then I propose that we go back round the panel one time to start drawing this to a conclusion, because we are beginning to run out of time now. So from Facebook, we have Helen Bailey, who I think is a tour guide. She says tour guides more often work for agencies than dictate the itinerary. Most clients want to see the Uffizi and the David. Guides usually prefer the lesser known sites, but clients and agencies are responsible for the tours. When working with my own clients, I can suggest the other sites, but still clients want to see the Uffizi and the David. Then Eleonora Agostini says, I agree that Airbnb is a problem that has to be solved. The main problem I see with cruise ships is the sheer numbers that move around, shop and eat all together at the same time. They fill up roads, restaurants, museums, etc. And the third one from somebody, Sarah Bevilacqua, people always want to tout that they saw something that others don't usually see when they return from a trip. It makes them feel special. I agree that other places should be highlighted. So that's a note of hope that we can see something other than the David and the Uffizi. So Marzio, back to you in the panel.
Yes, but I mean, it's up to them, because they already made a lot of questions. They focus on the people that spoke, described several situations, several approach. Pier Carlo, wanted to first of all speak about all these elements.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to talk about the 2 concepts of rules and let's call marketing or communication, okay? When I think to the things that would be necessary to do to be operative and concrete, I said before are necessary many little new rules, but of course are not enough. But is necessary also a big communication campaign to inform the visitors about the possibilities that are in Florence, not only the David and the Uffizi, for example, but I will talk about that also later. But in general, information is important, communication is important, and we have to give a big role to the travel writers, to the bloggers, and to the communication about so many other things Florence can offer, and about the necessity of treat the city in a different way. That's fine, but rules are fundamental. I want to remind a little bit of history. More than 40 years ago, Florence, 50 years ago maybe, help me if I'm wrong, but Florence was a badly polluted city. Okay, how to solve the problem? The center of Florence was full of cars. I remember when I was a young boy, Piazza della Signoria was an immense parking. Okay, was possible to educate people? Yes, of course. But it's been necessary to handle the problem properly, make rules. So they created the limited traffic zone, which, what are rules? Rules that says you cannot enter the city, full stop. Next point, what it will be. In this way, in few years, the problems start to be solved. We basically encourage a walking tourism. We encourage a different approach to leave the space and to handle and enjoy the streets and the square of the medieval and Renaissance city of Florence. But the rules that created the ZTL has been necessary. So to conclude, is necessary a mosaic of initiatives, a mosaic of ideas, a mosaic of little new issues to work on it. okay? Is necessary a lot of communication, but are necessary rules. And on top of everything, obviously, is necessary the will to make people respect the rules, because this is not what is going on at the moment. That's enough for now. Thank you.
Please, I don't know if Dianne wants to say something, because you stay silent for a long time because you like to hear, as UNESCO usually does. You want to see, you want to...
I'm absorbing, so I can take this back to our next scientific committee meeting. This has been a very valuable experience, and I thank Simon and the British Institute and all the panelists for this opportunity to participate. There are so many aspects here, but I'd just like to focus on a few from the perspective of the realm that I work within with UNESCO and the ICOMOS Advisory Board. And that is for the city of Florence to look at its people resources. I think this panel discussion with citizens who contribute to the city of Florence, who are participating in this panel discussion, just look at the wealth that Florence and Tuscany has in its people resources. One of the problems with the commodification of tourism is that UNESCO is looking at is that there's a commodification of tourism by the global tourist industry of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And so we are having to look at this situation very seriously. And in looking at that, it's with Italy has, and what made Italy, I think, so vulnerable for the pandemic as well is its mass tourism. Italy has the highest mass tourism in all of the world and in all of Europe. And so this makes it also very vulnerable in many ways. And Italy has the largest number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites because of its built environment. And so all of these are challenges and how to manage that. And I think, so what we need to do is we need to begin to deconstruct that globalization of tourism, look at, UNESCO has been working on this with its advisory bodies for some time now, a sustainable tourism that that the audience has commented on. And a sustainable tourism is a balance between the heritage, the culture, and the economy. And the economy is a major factor in sustainable tourism. And I think and has looked at ways that can be compatible. And so, I would encourage you to anyone working in this area to go to the UNESCO Heritage site, to go to cultural tourism. And one of the things that is important, and it's important, I think, for all of those who are extensions of this commodification of tourism, such as the bloggers, such as Sarah was touching upon, we need a mind shift within the industry of tourism. As Pierre said, we need regulations, and we also need a mind shift in those who are bringing tourists to the cities. And that's, once again, going back to the UNESCO traveler, and that is promoting a travel that's based on authenticity and integrity. So Florence is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but that the designation doesn't stop there. Being a UNESCO World Heritage Site means an ongoing daily process of maintaining the authenticity and integrity of that designation. And that has to do with the quality of the site, the integrity of the site, and the integrity of tourism. And so just to touch, I don't think I finished quite, my thought about the people resources. Given that Italy has the largest number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, it also has the largest number of World Heritage experts. And many of them, are right there in Tuscany. And so what I would love to see is a very open and positive approach on the part of the Comune di Firenze, on the part of the Sindaco, and to invite this incredible resource of people in Tuscany who are ICOMOS specialists, who are the hands-on people on the sites. You have so many, you have such an incredible resource of people in Tuscany who are on the advisory bodies to UNESCO World Heritage Convention, who go around the world and advise other cities. And just to open that, just for the Syndico to open that up to a brainstorming and in a very positive approach by everyone, an emphasis on the positive as opposed to the critical. And also to come back to what Leonardo was saying, and I'm so glad that he reminded us of it, is that Florence is also it's countryside. It's a relationship between the city and the surrounding countryside and the territories. And one of the main areas of heritage, of this heritage legacy that Italy has is the paesaggio. And Tuscany has that. And so another way to decentralize tourism and to work towards a more sustainable, holistic tourism that everyone can benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nobody is a prophet in his city, unfortunately. But at the same time, I think that we have to find also innovative and experts on web, on the people we were talking about before, journalists, blogger, and so on, to create, something like a critical mass of people trying to tell a different story and to defend our heritage and to let it live, because the process you were talking about, it's fundamental. Like a city is not something dead, left over there. It's something alive. It's living day by day, and also changing. Yeah, because we know that Florence changed very much. Lara, Leonardo, I don't know who wants to talk first for this last round.
Lara,
it's up to
you.
Ladies first.
Thank you. What can I add? All the comments have been very interesting from my fellow panelists. I rather agree with Pier Carlo. We need rules. I know that Italy has so many rules, but we need to simplify them, but to have them. And to first to build the offer, first to dream the city we want and its territory, of course, and try to adjust it to the future before the future comes, to the future we want. And for this, we need rules, and then we can promote it. I agree with Sarah that the point was great, and also with what Dianne said, but promotion comes afterwards. First, we make the product, and then we sell it. Up to now, we haven't made the product. We have just sold it.
Thank you, Lara. Leonardo.
Yeah, just to summarize, I think a lot has been said. Very interesting stimulation to look for towards the future, and I really hope that all this nice conversation can be consolidated in proper recommendations to the public sector, to our municipality, to the region, as we were saying, but also let's follow through so that our thoughts, our visions, and our desire to improve the situation are not lost. So let's make the recommendation and let's also follow them through. This is, I think, a responsibility that many of us feel, and I think we should try and give all the best of our energies to make things happen.
Thank you, Leonardo. One proposal, very simple to all participants to this very, I learned a lot from this web seminar. The proposal is when we, all of us, can travel, let's find ourselves in Florence and go to San Marco, Bargello, and Stibert. So we know something. I think that the last time I went to Stibert, I was a child. Anyway, okay. Simon, I think it's over.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Marzio, for a brilliant job on holding it all together. Thank you so much to Pier Carlo, to Dianne, to Lara, to Leonardo, our excellent panelists. And thank you also to all of you who have participated, to the many people who've given us questions and comments, and for those who've stayed with us for over an hour and a half, one of our longer sessions, but I think that reflects just how important and challenging this particular topic is. We will follow up following Leonardo's recommendation. In 2 weeks' time, we'll have the grand finale of the Future of Florence series, when we'll bring the findings of this panel together with the other panels about the knowledge economy, about greening the city, about manufacturing in the bottega, and about higher education research, into one final discussion about the future of Florence, after which I personally will oversee the creation of a summary document, which we will take up to the Comune and the Regione and share widely with other stakeholders in the city. So thank you all for your participation. Sarah's been putting up in the comments page our regular request for donations for anybody who has enjoyed the session and can help us out. With lockdown, the Institute is hemorrhaging funds, and any help you can give us is much appreciated. Also, for those who are not regular customers and patrons, if you want to know more about what's going on at the British Institute, we have a regular every Monday a newsletter called What's On goes out, telling everyone who's on the list what's happening. So if you're not already on that, please do check out our website and subscribe to the What's On newsletter. So I think Sarah's going to put up the link for that as well. And I think that's just about it. Next week on Wednesday, we're back to our regular Wednesday lecture series. Jeremy Boudreau will resume his virtual visits program, and he's taking us to Le Cachemire, the beautiful park on the banks of the river on the east side of the city, and the long and interesting history of the evolution of Florence's main park. So that's next Wednesday with Jeremy Boudreau, our well-known head of history of art. So stay in touch, everyone. Thank you once again to the panel, and we will see you around virtually and then eventually back here in Florence. Bye. Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you to everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Marzio. And thanks to everybody.
Ciao, ciao.
Good night to everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Buonanotte a tutti.